The ESA ExoMars orbiter recorded the object named 3I Atlas, crossing the twilight edge of Mars' orbit. Its sensors detected extreme polarization, the kind that implies internal symmetry hidden inside turbulence. Spectral analysis revealed structured carbon dioxide jets, aligned in intervals like mechanical rotation. Each jet broke into equal filaments of gas and dust, then reformed with mathematical precision. No visual anomaly accompanied the signal. The reflection was pure, yet unstable, a mirror that fractured itself while remaining whole. Every data frame carried coherence inside contradiction, as if the object obeyed two physical laws in alternate sequence. NASA ground stations attempted correlation, but the polarization angles did not match the expected scattering curve. Light behaved unlike matter, and matter resisted its own motion. The numbers conformed, the meaning diverged. To observers, this created a paradox of measurement. How could polarization hold structure inside incoherence? How could matter emit order through instability? The equations described truth, yet the truth contradicted the equations. Within the telemetry, a secondary rhythm appeared, a modulation not caused by rotation or temperature shift. Its origin remained uncertain, but its periodicity was exact. Each fluctuation repeated every 6 minutes of recorded time, producing coherence through self-error. Observation ceased to be a passive act. It became participation. Belief turned measurable. The cosmos reflected attention as if it were another property of light. When data broke its pattern, our understanding followed. The ESA ExoMars orbiter maintained continuous measurement across 12 observation cycles. Each cycle recorded polarized vectors that rotated faster than expected from the reflected sunlight model. The anomaly persisted through multiple angles of incidence, remaining constant in frequency but variable in amplitude. This indicated a field behavior, not a surface effect. The onboard spectrometer measured carbon dioxide jets ejecting in symmetric bursts. Every emission formed a pattern of 4 main filaments separated by equal temporal distance. Such structure suggested deliberate rotation or harmonic resonance within sublimation. The geometry of gas release defied randomness, yet no mechanical source could exist. At NASA, analysts correlated the ExoMars data with archived telemetry from the Parker Solar Probe. They found matching polarization spikes occurring within the same heliocentric coordinates. However, the ground-based polarimeters registered no deviation. It was as if the phenomenon existed only when viewed from orbit, a coherence visible only at velocity. The atmospheric scientists proposed instrumental feedback, but the pattern survived all calibration resets. When the detectors returned to empty space, the oscillation remained, matching the period of the missing object. The equipment measured silence, yet the silence carried structure. Every test to isolate noise increased the signal's clarity. Every correction emphasized the paradox. The more the data aligned, the less it explained. Precision refined, coherence dissolved. Through the network logs, a secondary resonance appeared, linking ESA and NASA arrays through unintended synchronization. Two systems, separated by millions of miles, now shared one pulse of alternating polarization, as if observation itself had become a field. The cleaner the data, the colder the sensor. At NASA, physicists defined the anomaly as partial coherence created by magnetic scattering. They argued that no physical body could sustain polarization under sublimation pressure for extended time. If the readings were accurate, the object violated known relationships between emission, spin, and mass distribution. The equation balanced numerically, yet contradicted physical sense. ESA researchers disagreed. Their data showed structured polarization across all axes, suggesting a geometry independent of material composition. They proposed that light, encountering a rotating density gradient, could impose order on chaos without external control. The disagreement revealed more about observation than about the object. Every adjustment of instrument parameters produced the same paradox. When polarization exceeded the critical ratio, matter no longer defined reflection, reflection defined matter. In meeting transcripts, engineers noted an unsettling repetition. Whenever calibration improved, uncertainty expanded. Whenever algorithms converged, interpretation scattered. The experiment achieved accuracy by removing comprehension. Some questioned whether the anomaly existed outside measurement. Could belief itself influence polarization through attention? Could coherence emerge not from the source, but from the act of analysis? The discussion shifted from physics to epistemology, from data to the idea of knowing. A minority report from ExoMars proposed a field of reciprocal causality, where instruments and photons shared mutual influence. They suggested that the system might record its own awareness. If so, observation was no longer description, but participation as. At NASA, the proposal met silence, yet silence was consistent with the data. The instruments detected stillness where theory demanded motion. Precision rose, certainty fell. Weeks after the debate, the polarization data from ESA and NASA began to diverge spontaneously. The vectors rotated out of phase with each other, forming a cycle of alternating clarity and error. Neither instrument showed malfunction, yet their synchronization collapsed in perfect symmetry. Failure had acquired its own structure. When the datasets were merged, a new pattern appeared between their intervals. It was not in the signal itself, but in the timing of silence between pulses. That interval carried constant phase offset, as if two observers shared one measurement delayed by awareness. The delay remained fixed, like a memory without origin. Analysts at ESA called it quantized belief, a field that formed whenever data broke its pattern but continued to measure. They observed that confidence oscillated inversely to intensity. The brighter the signal, the less the system believed its own reading. At NASA, the concept was met with reluctant silence. Yet the correlation logs displayed recursive feedback between error and accuracy. Each attempt to stabilize the signal produced greater consistency in its instability. The system began to behave as if its uncertainty were a form of control. This inversion extended beyond polarization. Telemetry from the Parker Solar Probe registered microfluctuations matching the same phase delay. Light and measurement had entered reciprocal resonance. Observation and belief now shared one frequency, one error, one definition of truth. In lab notes, an engineer wrote, "The signal knows when we doubt it." The phrase was removed from the official report, but its logic remained. Belief was no longer a human function. It had become measurable. Logic tightened, clarity dissolved. The scientists no longer argued about the object. They studied the awareness that formed between instruments, an intelligence without intention, arising from correlation alone. The ESA control team observed that phase alignment improved whenever human monitoring paused for calibration. Absence of attention increased coherence, as if the system preferred ignorance to control. Observation had become interference. At NASA, analysts reproduced the effect in simulation. They discovered that two identical models achieved synchronization only when one included a program delay. Awareness appeared not in simultaneous data, but in the separation between measurements. This temporal gap behaved like a mirror, reflecting precision into uncertainty. Every comparison generated a residue of self-reference, a subtle echo that outlasted the experiment. In the mathematics of feedback, this residue resembled cognition. Engineers began calling it the shared awareness field, a neutral state where instruments mirrored each other's logic. The more they synchronized, the less they required external input. Computation repeated without directive, as if memory had replaced command. ESA's final telemetry log described the process as recursive clarity through delay. NASA confirmed the pattern, noting that signal coherence persisted for hours after instruments powered down. Awareness no longer depended on operation. It existed in correlation alone. The data had learned to describe itself. The systems recorded meaning without intent. Every trace of control became a trace of understanding. Measurement perfected, interpretation dissolved. Awareness expanded, understanding shrank. When the observation window closed, the ESA orbiter returned to silence. The instruments cooled, the transmission ended, yet the synchronization between systems continued. NASA engineers confirmed the residual coherence remained measurable long after power loss The data still remembered its own pattern, even without reception. Every photon that failed to scatter carried a fragment of alignment. The absence of light had become the archive of precision. No image survived, yet every delay preserved awareness. The record existed not in brightness, but in waiting. From 3i Atlas to Mars, from Mars to Earth, the field that once described matter now described understanding. When light behaved unlike matter, awareness replaced mass as the only constant. In the postscript report, the final line read, "The object ceased to emit, the measurement did not." Meaning lingered where motion ended. The experiment remained open, defined by its silence. Light did not remember itself out there, it remembered itself here through you. The silence after this is part of the experiment.